Now, crack, well-armed Chinese forces sweep back. This time, the enemy is in retreat.
戦局必ずしも好転せず、世界の体制また我に出会わず、つかの皆。
The Communist Peasant Army of 1 million strong is well disciplined, zealous, schooled in guerrilla tactics. The Nationalist forces number 3 million men, amply armed, confident of more American support. By mid-1946, the tenuous truce arranged by General Marshall breaks down as mutual political mistrust, followed by renewed shooting, first in Manchuria, then in North China, ignites a full-scale civil war.
The Republic of Korea has appealed to the United Nations for protection. I am proud to report that the United States is prepared to furnish assistance to the Republic of Korea.
It started out smoothly, but by nightfall of the second day, the UN was facing a new enemy in Korea, and a new war had begun. The Chinese rolled swiftly southward, splitting the Allied line and cutting off Marine and 7th Division troops in the east near the Chosin Reservoir.
The United Nations Security Council discusses the Chinese communist aggression in Korea. Red China's representatives listen carefully as the emissary of Korea launches a bitter attack.
I point my finger at these representatives of the Chinese Communist regime, and I ask, why do they come here with unclean hands? I ask again, why does this group come here with the hands that drip with the blood of the United Nations troops, the blood of the Korean people?
没人杀人吗？人们民警发声吧！让他们去见你们，这也不行，那也不行吗？人在人民的无处不要的努力，一家稳步地达到自己的目的。
Thousands of volunteer laborers worked here. Many of them were soldiers. A Chinese communist official told me that soldiers are expected to work as well as fight. It takes about 8.5 hours to run a batch through during a leaf fall, an improvement over earlier production techniques.
Red China holds an election. Mao Zedong, retiring as chief of state, votes for his hand-picked successor, Liu Shaochai, a leading party theoretician. Mao is still chief of the Communist Party and ruler in all but name.
The great Supreme Commander, Chairman Mao, issued a world-shaking call to us. You should pay attention to state affairs and carry the great proletarian cultural revolution through to the end.
voice we hear is proud, strident, militant, claiming power not yet achieved, goals which may be only propaganda or may be real. Yet, only a few hundred miles from China's borders in South Vietnam, America's military power is growing. Will China's rulers read the daily battle reports as foreshadowing an inevitable American victory which cannot be tolerated? Will they choose war or a compromised peace?
The Vietnamese people eagerly want peace to build up their country. But real independence must be achieved if there is to be real peace. The question is very clear. American imperialism is the aggressor. It must stop its air attacks on the North. It must put an end of its aggression in the South.
Their objective is not the fulfillment of Vietnamese nationalism. It is to erode and to discredit America's ability to help prevent Chinese domination over all of Asia. In this domination, they shall never succeed.
Of the People's Republic of China and its 750 million people. That is why I have undertaken initiatives in several areas to open the door for more normal relations between our two countries.
鬼馬雙星着頭勁，聯搏懵撈變滿確唔曳，做軍監等經已係成例。 求望發達一味靠穩定，鬼馬雙星眼傾傾，人生如賭博，贏輸都冇事定，贏咗得餐笑，輸過唔使興，做老千梗好揾過啊皇帝。 扮蟹瀨嘢真正係滑稽，求望發達一味靠穩定，鬼馬雙星怕現形。
Officers and soldiers are politically equal. We work, we eat, we relax and we train together.
After the Cultural Revolution, well, I think my aim in life has been correct. That is, well, I must serve the people and serve the community. Now I take the greatest happiness to teach the students. When I see the students make progress, I feel very happy. So this, I think, is quite a great change taking place in myself.
輸過唔使興，做老千梗好揾過啊皇帝，扮蟹瀨嘢真正係滑稽，求望發達一味靠穩定，鬼馬雙星，鬼馬雙星，鬼馬雙星，真係有型啊！
「
文传达中国人民解放军中华人民共和国的一套的国人民领袖毛主席率领到我们党。
Chairman Mao Zedong was the founder and wise leader of the Communist Party of China, the Chinese People's Liberation Army, and the People's Republic of China. Guided by Chairman Mao's Marxist-Leninist line, our party has steadily grown in strength. It has developed from small groups of a few dozen communists into a party with a membership of over 30 million, which now leads the People's Republic of China, into a disciplined party armed with a theory of Marxism-Leninism, using the method of self-criticism and closely linked with the masses of the people.
I welcome you, Prime Minister, Mr. Prime, Vice Premier, to the United States of America.
Have good relaxation, good barbecue, good country music, and good rodeo show.
Deng's visit here was controversial. About 400 noisy demonstrators were on hand at Deng's hotel. Houston, once named the sister city of Taipei, Taiwan, was not quite prepared to give the Red Chinese leader a real red carpet treatment.
Vietnam admitted Chinese troops are advancing. Several provincial capitals are threatened. Already 2 major Vietnamese towns are said to have been overrun, plus a string of villages along the 500-mile border.
The Chinese invasion lasted 27 days. It was a poor man's war. Little else but infantry and artillery were used. The Chinese set out to teach Vietnam a lesson. Vietnam is hailing it as a victory. This rally organized to prove it.
For the next 30 years at least, all couples may only have one single child each.
And I'm particularly pleased to see that Chairman Deng Xiaoping is able to be present. The joint declaration on the future of Hong Kong, which we have just signed on behalf of our 2 governments, is a landmark in the life of the territory.
心，却没对你说。我也知道你是真心喜欢我。
So I asked Deng Xiaoping whether China would ever go back to the days before his economic reforms.
There will be no turning back. If the current policy is altered, the standard of living of the people will definitely come down. So long as the people think the existing policy is correct, whoever wants to change it will be brought down.
Students were not satisfied. In December 1986, in Shanghai, Beijing, and Hefei, they held demonstrations. They demanded the right to nominate candidates in local elections. They wanted better conditions on campus and a say in the jobs they would be assigned for life. Deng, like almost every leader, viewed demonstrations as an unacceptable threat to the party's leadership. The government banned all further demonstrations.
Tibetans were fighting back. The fierce desire for independence took hold, and Chinese police were in the front line.
Yeah, but they're about 15 miles from us. I don't think they want to do something to us. Otherwise, we are well within the range.
Good evening. We begin tonight in China. Today, Mikhail Gorbachev became the first Soviet leader in 30 years to sit down with the leaders of China. Together, they agreed to normalize the relationship between the two largest communist countries in the world, to change things. But once again, that bit of history was overshadowed by students demanding change in China itself. And today, hundreds of thousands of Chinese from all walks of life have joined the students in the streets. ABC's John Lawrence is in Tiananmen Square.
There were as many as 500,000 people here tonight as the freedom and democracy movement gained strength. The 100-acre square in the center of Beijing was filled with ordinary citizens, onlookers, and supporters of the 1,000 college students who've been on a hunger strike since Saturday. A top-ranking minister of the Communist Party visited the students today. He said he sympathized with their demands for reform, but pleaded for more time to negotiate. It is now the beginning of a new day, Wednesday in Beijing. And the top leadership of the Communist Party has just made a new proposal to the students. It offers to work out concrete steps to enhance democracy and law and oppose corruption. But first, the message says, the students should end their strike. A short time ago, student leaders announced that they would continue their protest.
这就是说，现在事实上，北京
Meeting in the Great Hall of the People, Premier Li Peng declared, "The social order of Beijing is in chaos. It may spread to other parts of the country. Beijing has fallen into a state of anarchy. The government," he warned, "cannot ignore this phenomenon."
Tiananmen Square, the sound of gunfire sounded like a battle, but it was one-sided.
A line of soldiers was strung out facing a huge crowd. The air was filled with shouts of "Fascists! Stop killing!" We were in the line facing the troops. They were about 250 yards away. Young people were singing the Internationale to a background of gunfire. After hours of shooting and facing a line of troops, the crowd is still here. They're shouting, "Stop the killing and down with the government."
And all history shows us that when you have economic development, then very quickly political development is demanded after it. Now, of course, China's got great problems because they've got over 1,000 million people to organize in a political society. But I think that what we've seen in Beijing was an expression of those who want to see political reforms. I'm not sure that they're thinking in terms of our democracy. They were singing the Internationale, and that doesn't really go along with our method of thought or carrying on democracy. But I think this is one sign of the fact that economic development, which has already been achieved, is now being followed by a demand for political development.
As we approach the 21st century, the relationship between our two countries will be one of the most important in the world. I believe that my meeting today with President Xiong established our determination to build on the positive aspects of our existing relations.
In December 1994, during an inspection tour of Tianjin, Jiang Zemin stated, "We are working towards a socialist market economy. The socialist element is not optional, it's essential. It isn't just some useless addition. In fact, it is the word that clarifies the whole picture. It shows others the very nature of our market economy."
You have blocked internet sites here in China, the BBC, the Washington Post. Why? Why block an internet site? You don't trust the people somehow to be able to pick stuff up off the internet and learn?
We hope people will learn a lot of useful things from the internet. However, sometimes there is also unhealthy material, especially pornography on the internet, which does great harm to our youngsters.
Not from the BBC and not from the Washington Post.
是希望从这个 Internet 上面。
They might be banned because of some of their political news reports. We need to be selective. We hope to restrict as much as possible information not conducive to China's development.
A historic moment occurred in Doha, Qatar. At the 4th Ministerial Conference of the World Trade Organization, China's application to join was finally accepted.
The Ministerial Conference so agrees.
18歲沒戴錶，不過有時間，夠我沒有後顧，野性貪玩。霎眼27歲，時日無多。
One thing that China and Microsoft have in common is a belief in technology innovation as a key and essential enabler. I was very pleased to see the emphasis put in the 11th five-year plan, driving China to be an even stronger leader in technology innovation.
The most politically charged issue, of course, is energy. Russia is the world's second biggest oil exporter, and China is its #1 client. The two countries want to increase cooperation.
We have already reached the highest spheres of cooperation in the field of energy and between our defense ministries. I'm sure your visit will significantly help our bilateral relations.
I now have the honor of asking the President of the People's Republic of China to open the games of the 29th Olympiad of the modern era.
我宣布，北京第29届奥林匹克运动会开幕。
This is about as far away from Wall Street as you can possibly get. But the financial crisis touches everyone.
They're sucking money out of this country. Then the horrible part is they then loan it back to us. So China takes the money out, they then loan it back. Hey look, I know lots of folks in China. They think we are the dumbest son of a bitches in the world.
Three decades ago, on a January day like this, another American president stood here and welcomed another Chinese leader for the historic normalization of relations between the United States and the People's Republic of China. On that day, Deng Xiaoping spoke of the great possibilities of cooperation between our two nations. Looking back on that winter day in 1979, it is now clear the previous 30 years had been a time of estrangement for our two countries. The 30 years since have been a time of growing exchanges and understanding. With this visit, we can lay the foundation for the next 30 years.
So the combined impacts of climate change and local pollutions are causing enormous consequences.
Challenges are rising, economic growth slowing, the gap between rich and poor growing wider, and the Chinese people anxious and angry.
健全反腐败法律制度，更加科学有效地防治腐败，严格执行党风廉政建设责任制，坚决查处大案要案，着力解决发生在群众身边的腐败问题。
打了疫苗让你产生了抗体。
2014年，我们将在改革的道路上迈出新的步伐。推进改革的根本目的是要让国家变得更加富强，让社会变得更加公平正义，让人民生活得更加美好。
Through the leadership of President Obama and President Xi, our nations are now collaborating to tackle some of the most complex global challenges the world has ever seen.
封闭排他的
The Belt and Road is not an exclusive club, and it aims to promote green development. We are convinced that a more open China will further integrate itself into the world and deliver greater progress and prosperity for China and the world at large.
全世界的问题不需再担心，它将会致命火星。
中国新冠疫苗研发完成并投入使用后，将作为全球公共产品，为实现疫苗在发展中国家的可及性和可担负性做出中国贡献。
Good evening. In Hong Kong, hundreds of activists remain under siege inside the Polytechnic University, where there's been more violence today as police try to keep the campaigners trapped inside. Outside the university, protesters have tried to break the police lines, some of them using petrol bombs, while police have responded with rubber bullets and tear gas. All of this, the latest development in the protest that started back in June, following plans to allow some criminal suspects to be extradited to mainland China. Critics feared that that could undermine Hong Kong's judicial independence.
Taiwan has reported the largest incursion of Chinese Air Force jets in months, as Beijing steps up its military activity around the island's air defense zone. Taiwan's defense ministry said Sunday its fighters warned away over 36 Chinese aircraft in an area close to the Taiwan-controlled Pratas Islands. China, which claims Taiwan as its own, has repeatedly sent Air Force missions into the island's air defense zone for well over a year.
Row by row, there are hundreds of them, seated on the ground, heads shaved, blindfolded. Their hands are bound behind their backs as dozens of guards hover in SWAT uniforms. It's unclear who these prisoners are, but Western intelligence sources tell CNN they believe the video is authentic, that it shows Muslim ethnic minorities, and that the video was shot in Xinjiang, China.
The Biden administration will not send any diplomatic or official representation to the Beijing 2022 Winter Olympics and Paralympic Games, given the PRC's ongoing genocide and crimes against humanity in Xinjiang.
我宣布，北京第24届冬季奥林匹克运动会开幕。